Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're diving straight into the epic origins, water demons, and absolute ancient survival guides hidden within the Nilamata Purana. Seriously, imagine a world where saving humanity required this fragile, uneasy alliance between humans, ancient snake deities, and get this, snow-dwelling ghosts? Well, today we are going to decode the truly fascinating mysteries of ancient Kashmir. Let's get started.
Okay, so I want you to imagine a time when this famously lush, beautiful valley wasn't a valley at all. Instead, it was a massive aquatic battleground. Long before it was known for its breathtaking scenery, the source texts actually tell us this land was entirely submerged. It was this deep, dark lake governed by a downright terrifying water demon. So, it wasn't just a place to live, it was a place you literally had to fight to survive in. And that brings us to the Nilamata Purana. Now, you might be thinking, this is just some ancient book filled with fairy tales, right? Actually, scratch that. It operates as the literal foundational myth and kind of like a geographical GPS for ancient Kashmir. It's this remarkable text that completely blends cosmic battles and divine interventions with a very practical step-by-step survival guide that the ancients actually used to keep their chaotic world from completely falling apart.
Section 1. Rulers of the Valley.
The sheer scale of this mythology is anchored by this staggering number, 603. According to the Purana, there were exactly 603 magical serpent deities. They're known as Nagas, living in the ancient valley. And they weren't just passing through. They were deeply, deeply rooted in the region's lakes, rivers, and springs, basically acting as the undisputed original inhabitants of the entire land.
Now, what's super interesting here is the sharp contrast between their leaders. On one side, you have the absolute ruler, King Naga, and he wasn't some terrifying monster with poisonous fangs. He was actually this magnificent, benevolent king adorned with exactly 700 hoods. He even provided a massive sanctuary for his people when they were being hunted down by their sworn enemy, the giant eagle Garuda. But then, on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, you had Sadangula Naga. Sadangula had a genuinely wicked disposition and this terrible, terrible habit of abducting human wives. And because of that horrific behavior, the benevolent King Nila actually banished him, exiling him completely out of the main valley to the Darva region.
And you know, this perfectly sets up the story of another incredibly powerful deity, the Mahapadma Naga. Like a lot of his kind, he was being severely harassed by that giant eagle Garuda. So, desperate for a safe haven, Mahapadma approached a human ruler named King Vishvagaswa and begged for a place to live in the city of Chandrapur. But here's the crazy part. Once the king granted him the space, Mahapadma unleashed his immense magic and completely flooded the entire city, transforming it into a massive aquatic sanctuary for himself and his family.
So the crucial point we need to take away here is that these Nagas, living in the deep lakes and sparkling rivers, they weren't just colorful background characters. They literally dictated human survival. The ancients firmly believed that the Nagas directly controlled the region's intense rain, violent storms, and incredibly heavy snowfall. Basically, if you were a human living in Kashmir, the moods of the Nagas directly determined whether your crops grew or whether you froze to death.
Section 2. Mapping Sacred Geography.
Now, this myth is actually highly geographic, which is wild. The ancient text maps names directly to modern reality. For instance, the most sacred river, the Vitasta, is exactly what we know today as the Jhelum River. What the text refers to as the Ganga in Kashmir, that's actually the mighty Sindhu River. And the Chandrabhaga, which acted as the rugged southeastern boundary of the ancient territory, is today known as the Chenab. It's literally mapping out the real world.
To truly understand the deep importance of the Vitasta, or Jhelum River, we've got to look at its epic legend. The story goes that the sage Karshapa prayed to Lord Shiva for pure water to cleanse the land. In response, Lord Shiva struck the ground with his mighty trident, and the Vitasta River violently burst forth from the exact holes made by the trident's prongs. According to the Purana, this river is considered the literal earthly incarnation of goddess Uma, or Parvati herself.
The text also highlights some other incredibly divine waters. Look at the Kanaka Vahini, which is just beautifully translated as the bearer of gold. This tributary flowed down from the eastern slopes of Mount Harmakuda to merge with the Sindhu. Then there's the Devika River. Its waters were considered so incredibly pure and divine that they nourished the absolute finest, highest quality rice crops in the entire region. So the geography wasn't just sacred, it was literal wealth and sustenance. And honestly, what is truly amazing is that you can still visit these meticulously identified locations today. You know that massive lake created by Mahapadma Naga when he flooded Chandrapur? Yeah, that is the famous Wular Lake.
The text also mentions the prominent spring of Anantanag, which, crazy enough, still bears the exact same name today. There's Kapteshwara, where Lord Shiva miraculously appeared as a piece of wood, and the Shardamander, an ancient temple of the goddess Durga, sitting right on the banks of the Madhamati River. This text is quite literally an ancient roadmap you can still trace right now.
Section 3. Rituals for Survival.
So there is a really sharp, frankly terrifying contrast when you look at early human existence in Kashmir. Humans originally couldn't even live there year-round. They enjoyed this lush, beautiful 6-month summer, but the remaining 6 months of brutal winter belonged to fierce, flesh-eating spirits known as Pisakas, led by their king, Nikumba. I mean, sharing a valley with flesh-eating ghosts during the darkest months of the year, that required some serious, hardcore survival strategies.
Facing this terrifying winter reality, an old Brahmin named Chandradeva decided he had to take action. He approached the great serpent leader, King Naga, and practically begged for a solution. And King Nila didn't just offer sympathy, right? He provided highly detailed, step-by-step remedial measures that humans had to follow absolutely perfectly if they wanted to survive the freezing cold and appease those fierce spirits.
It's actually wild when you look at how this step-by-step guide breaks down the Ashfayuji Winter Festival, which was designed specifically to honor the Pisaka king, Nikumba. First off, they had to completely whitewash their homes. On day 1, everyone, except the sick and young children, fasted, performing a grand puja around a warm fire all night long. Day 2 was a massive feast with friends. But day 3? Day 3 required humans to literally go out into the streets, throw mud at each other, and shout abusive, obscene language? It sounds totally chaotic today, but this wild display was explicitly directed to ward off the evil winter spirits.
But the survival rules definitely didn't stop there. Later in the year, keeping the peace meant strictly performing another ritual for Nikumba on the dark 14th day of Chaitra. Humans were explicitly instructed to place very specific offerings of meat, fish, and wine at strategic locations. We're talking crossroads, riverbanks, and directly under trees. It was basically a precise territorial tax that had to be paid to the supernatural world.
Which brings us to the Navahima Patsutsava, the vital festival celebrating the very first snowfall. To prevent natural disasters like deadly, crushing snowstorms, humans couldn't just hunker down inside. Oh no, they had to wear heavy woolen clothes, go out and sit directly on top of the fresh snow, and drink new wine. They worshipped the snow and the mountains and had to feed a highly specific cooked meal called kumasha to the Brahmins. Every single action was a highly calculated survival remedy.
Another massive protective remedy was Kukasuptika, which is essentially the ancient Kashmiri version of Diwali. On the dark night of Kartika, humans had to light oil lamps literally everywhere, in temples, at crossroads, in cremation grounds, even inside cowsheds. They wore brand new clothes and feasted. But the most unique part? The very next morning, they were required to play gambling games, firmly believing that whoever won would secure good luck and prosperity for the entire year ahead.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that King Nila left zero room for human error or doubt. These weren't just friendly suggestions, they were treated like the laws of physics in this ancient world. The Purana explicitly warned that failing to follow these exact, detailed rituals meant the universal balance would completely shatter. The country would be devastated by excessive rain, terrible floods, severe droughts, premature deaths, and crushing snowfalls. For them, ritual was literally survival.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. Were these epic tales of magical snake gods and flesh-eating demons simply fantasy? Or were they actually an incredibly ingenious ancient survival guide? I mean, think of the sheer brilliance of how these ancient people blended complex geology, severe environmental realities, and practical social laws into one unforgettable masterpiece just to ensure their descendants would survive. It really makes you look at mythology in a completely different light, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning the history handed down to us.